Oh, recording.
Yes, I'm going to see if Joe emailed me. Maybe he didn't get the link or there's an issue.
No, he just sent me the link actually, so I know he's around. I've texted him.
Well, to any building 2 residents, I apologize for the fire alarms last night. And to Dana for getting you out of bed.
No worries. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So we all had a little party out in the street last night. I saw David. I saw you out there, David. Can't hear you, David.
You're muted.
How about now?
Yeah.
There you go.
Did you turn off the second alarm at 7 this morning?
No, actually, Bob Trimper did.
Okay.
Yeah, but the fire department did show up, and they checked the panel and that kind of thing.
Wow.
You know, we probably shouldn't be shutting off alarms and letting the fire.
That's right.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, so they were going through things, and everything's fine, but it was just one of those false alarms. So we had an alarm at 1:30 last night. I think it was 1:45, somewhere in there, and then one again at 7 this morning. So it is what it is. More hurricane stuff. Okay, I don't think I'm going to keep everybody waiting. I think we can.
We have a forum, so we can go ahead.
Yeah, we need to move on. So everyone, we have with us Jeff Sanders from Gulf Shore Insurance, and Jeff is going to give us a little tutorial on insurance and what we can expect in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Good morning, everybody. I know I said hello to most of you who were on the call earlier. We were talking a bit about the claims, but happy to be a part of this. I've been doing a lot of this and also a lot of speaking at sort of your town hall type board meetings. So certainly if you have those coming up, I'm happy to come and talk for a few minutes as well. A few areas that I want to make sure we talk about. First one we talked a little bit about just before we got started here was the claims. Obviously you had both a wind claim and a flood claim, 2 different policies. I'll dig into those a little bit more in depth. But the main policy that we are expecting some insurance dollars and insurance proceeds to come from are those flood policies. There's one for each building. They're written through the National Flood Insurance Program, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but they're effectively the subsidized first stop for flood insurance. It's underwritten at the end of the day by FEMA. It's their dollars. So we know we've got some insurance dollars and proceeds coming from there. Marilyn and I had spoken last week where she provided the proof of loss over to the insurance company, which is basically step 1 in getting that check in hand. So there'll be a check for each building, for each coverage. I think all of the checks, each one is a little over $80,000. I don't have the notes specifically in front of me, but they're all sort of in the low 80s per building. So you've got those dollars coming. Don't think of that as sort of the final payment either as you're going through this process. I know the adjuster has been pretty straightforward discussing with Marilyn sort of some of the items that are going to fall outside of the coverage. Some of the elevator, components are covered, some are not. Certainly things like the fire suppression systems and the emergency lighting, I think the adjuster's been pretty clear that they don't intend to provide coverage for that. When we look at the flood insurance policy, it is quite limited in coverage. And I hate to say it, but that's very likely by design. When you're talking about this National Flood Insurance Program and the NFIP policy, it is truly a one-size-fits-all for all condominium association buildings. It's a specific policy form, which we call the RCBAP, and that's just an acronym for Residential Condominium Building Association Policy. So whether you're a condominium in Florida or Texas, California, or Michigan, you all have the exact same policy form, and it's very limited. For an elevated building, which you all are, because you're built to code, your ground level floor is effectively parking, and of course you have the foyers and things like that. The coverage is extremely limited. It's limited to 17 specific items, and a few of those items are more categories than items, but really that's structural in nature. So, the contents and some of the decorations and things like that are certainly not covered. And then a lot of the components, some of them electrical and some equipment, are falling outside of the coverage too. Naturally, we think, well, what could we have done differently to hopefully provided coverage for some of those items, right? That's a good, healthy perspective after an event. Marilyn and I talked a little bit about it. I think it was a week or two ago. And from a flood perspective, really the only viable way to insure against that is either through the National Flood Insurance Program, which is the policies that you have, or the private flood market. Now, the private flood insurance market has all but dried up, other than what we call excess limits, if you need additional limits over and above what the National Flood Policy is providing. But the coverage form, as far as what they cover, is a mirror coverage. So it's effectively the same coverage. It's no more broad. So I say it, and I hate to say it by design, but it's almost like our federal government, when writing these policies, sort of looked at, hey, what are the common causes of loss, or the common items that are going to be lost in really every flood event? And frankly, a lot of those just aren't covered unless they're mainly structural in nature. So that's where you're seeing some of that limited coverage. From a flood perspective, there's really no traditional product to add coverage to those items when we're talking about a flood event. Just like after Irma, and it was different because that was a wind event, but anytime there's a catastrophe and there's gaps in coverage, very likely there's going to be some companies that come out, or folks that want to look and act like insurance companies, that are going to design some unique products to try and sell to fill in those gaps. As those arise, we can certainly look at them and discuss them and try and learn about them. But our experience after Irma, as we looked at a lot of those products that became available, the non-traditional products, they're not underwritten by the traditional insurance companies. Most of them really were not worth the money that you'd pay for them. It was mostly good money after bad, frankly. But certainly we can kind of look at those. So that's a question that always comes up. How would we have gotten coverage for those items? There's really no effective way to have done that. If we change gears to the other policy, the wind policy, because you absolutely had wind damage too. It wasn't as catastrophic or maybe as visible as flood damage, but there were certainly, this was a wind event, no doubt. You guys are coastal, and it was a Category 4 hurricane, maybe more in some areas that hit us here. So you have roof damage, you have wind-driven rain, where the rain gets blown in through the seals of the windows and doors and things of that nature. So on the property side, they're still evaluating the claim. Your carrier is Steadfast, who's part of Zurich, who I'm sure all of you have heard of. So they're actually a very well-respected, very detailed carrier. So I expect them to do a fair job in analyzing and assessing this claim. We haven't seen their proof of loss or their adjustment report, which would be the next step in this. I know they've been out. I think they've sent an engineer out as well to do a full inspection of the units, the roof, all the major building components. And we're just looking and waiting for that report to come out. I know we're about almost 70 days or so post-storm. In a normal claim scenario, we would have the reports by now. You're talking two to 4 weeks, maybe 30 days to get those adjustment reports. And frankly, everything sort of changed with Ian just because of the scope and how many people were damaged. So it's taking a lot longer. As of the last couple of weeks, I've started to see a lot of these reports roll in. So I think it was Monday, we sent the follow-up over to Steadfast Zurich to get an update, a status update. They're still waiting for that field adjuster's final report. Once the desk adjuster receives that report, it's usually anywhere from a couple days to a week that they'll have the report ready for our review. So yet to be seen on that. On that policy too, let's talk about one other thing, is the deductible. So with flood, the deductible is quite low. I think it's $1,250 per building. So what coverage there is, you can access the dollars very quickly and easily. With the property insurance, it's a little bit different. We're talking about a percentage deductible, and that percentage is a percentage of the value of the building itself. It's on a per building case, so it's your 3 buildings plus your pool house building. It's 3% times the value of the building. That translates to something in the neighborhood of about $450,000 per building is what the deductible is before you get into that insurance coverage. I don't know if you have any idea of what the remediation costs are going to be quite yet, but that's, from a dollar perspective, a fairly high threshold. From a percentage deductible, it's actually a relatively low deductible. The days of the 2% and 3% deductibles are going away. These insurance companies are automatically pushing up the deductible because frankly, they're making you as the policyholder share in the risk more. The Florida insurance or property insurance market was the worst we've seen in, I forget how long, 25 years as far as a placement of coverage before Hurricane Ian. And Hurricane Ian is just sort of the cherry on top to make it extremely, extremely difficult, not only to place the coverage, but from a pricing standpoint. No doubt that 6 or 8 months and a year from now, we're gonna have a lot of companies that have either gone insolvent, which we've seen in the last year and a half, others have, and there's others that are just gonna choose not to do business in Florida anymore because they feel like they just can't make money. The market is already extremely limited. I mean, we're talking about 5, 6, 7 companies maybe who are willing to write large scale property insurance in Florida. And that number is just gonna become less and less. Like any marketplace, you have less competition in the market from a carrier perspective. Prices are gonna go up because frankly, they can take their pound of flesh. That's sort of a quick analysis of where we are in the Florida marketplace right now. I'll touch on sort of the crystal ball looking forward to the next renewal. So your renewal is coming up in April. I've always gotten together with Chris Younce in the past, so Marilyn will likely get together, and if anybody else wants to be part of that meeting, I really like to do kind of a 2-part meeting as we go into the renewal. The first one I call a pre-renewal meeting. It's about 3 months or so before the effective date. So we'll look to get together in mid-January at some point, really to talk strategy, what we're seeing, how are the repairs coming along. There's going to be a lot of details that we'll try and get from you to hopefully, shine you up and sell you to the carriers. But very likely what we're predicting, and this is the case when you have these large scale claim events, is when you have an open claim, really you're probably only going to have the renewal that's offered to you by the existing carrier. So in this case, that'd be Steadfast or Zurich. Certainly we'll see if anybody else is willing to bid and offer a quote, but my gut's telling me that there probably won't be any other takers for your property insurance outside of Zurich while you have the open claim. And that's really just standard when we have a claim scenario going on.
And they know, Jeff, excuse me for interrupting,
Go
but
ahead.
and they know that also, that they're probably the only bidder.
You're exactly right. I mean, I don't want to say they all collude these insurance companies together, but they are educated in the marketplace, right? They know.
Sure.
So that kind of brings me to the next point: is what is that rate increase going to look like? We did a budget back in, the budget is kind of what we call the budget, but it's our kind of outlook. I think back in August or September before Hurricane Ian, of what we thought the rate increase would look like, and that's just based on the market conditions. And at that time, the conversation was, look, the property insurance is going to be the big driver, and that could fall anywhere between 15% and 30% increase. Okay, fairly large range. I think the number we settled on when we gave you a budget was on the higher side, because if I'm in your position, I'd rather budget a little bit more than have it come in under. We gave 25%. What y'all used internally, I don't know, but that was effectively the number that we gave. What's it going to look like post Ian? We really don't know. I'll give you a little perspective of some of the renewals that I've had over the last couple of months, where we were looking at estimating a similar renewal anywhere between that 15 and 30% number. All of them except for one, which I haven't presented yet, that'll be on Friday, have come in above that estimate. Most of them are falling between 25 and 50% from a rate increase perspective. And that's simply because of the conditions of the market after Ian. To Randy's point, they know they can get their pound of flesh out of you, because the last resort carriers are still not going to play ball at that premium level that a Zurich or a Steadfast is going to be willing to write you at. It's not impossible to move your insurance from the carrier, but it's nearly impossible. The carriers that would be willing to take you on are probably going to be 2 or 3 times what you're currently paying. So it's just a market condition. So by projection for your renewal is changing, although it's still sort of a shot in the dark. I wouldn't be surprised to see something in the neighborhood of close to a 50% rate increase at renewal. Hopefully it's less than that. Hopefully it's 25 to 30. I'd like to think that Zurich and Steadfast are still a best-in-class carrier, and that their renewals will be better. But I haven't had a renewal from them over the last couple of months since the storm. several coming up in January and February. So I'll get a pretty good idea of it as we go forward. But, you know, we'll see. I've covered a lot of ground there. I've kind of shortened a lot of that as well. But any questions from you all, sort of based on what I've touched on so far? I think I see David maybe with a question.
Yeah, I just have a question for Marilyn because I don't have it in front of me. What did you include in the budget, Marilyn, for a percentage increase in the insurance premiums?
I put in 45% versus
Oh.
last year's budget.
Okay. And I guess if it's, you said April, right? So it's really a third at the old rate and
Right.
2/3 at the new rate.
It's a blend.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, on the rate increase, I hate to say it, you know, usually we have a pretty good idea based on the market conditions, but after Ian, it really has changed everything. Well, it's hard to compare this storm to Irma as well, because with Irma, the rates really didn't change until we got about 8 months or 12 months past the storm. You know, those renewals that happened in the 6 months following the storm were all relatively flat. It was just such a different marketplace. And then the creep loss, as we call it in the industry, the creep loss started happening. All of a sudden, folks were hiring the public adjusters. They were pushing for more coverage for larger settlements, and the carriers started to feel that pain. And that's what sent us into really the last 3 and 4 years of these really difficult renewals. It all started a year or so after Irma. The carriers, it seems like, have learned their lessons from Irma, and they're taking their pound of flesh, you know, right away. So, you know, we'll have to see where it comes in. You guys are certainly not alone. Honestly, you're in a better case than many because you're a big, beautiful building. Although you're coastal, you're exposed coastal, which is a bit of a problem. But certainly the design of your building and the construction of your building, you know, is very, very good compared to some of the older associations as well.
okay. Any questions for Jeff from the listeners?
Not many after the doom and gloom insurance speech, I hear. Sounds like.
Well, you did a good job.
Great job. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, folks, I know I covered a lot of ground there, and I sort of condensed a lot of that too. So as you have questions, as you think about it and you talk about it amongst yourselves, if you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You know, Marilyn's got my number. I've spoken to her. Seems like, you know, every week or so since the claim, you can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to talk. And anybody who wants to be involved in that meeting as we get into January, the pre-renewal meeting, as I'll call it, you're certainly welcome to. We'll come out, we'll sit it, we'll do a roundtable, and we'll talk about what we think is to come.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks so much for attending.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Take care now.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay, so from there, I'd like to move on to the update of the Hurricane Ian recovery.
Sorry,
Go
can I
ahead.
just ask one follow-up quickly to Marilyn?
Absolutely.
Or you, Randy, as well. If the deductible is 450,000 a building on the wind policy,
It's actually not per building. It's one master policy. So it's really 1.4 million.
1.4 million.
Yeah.
Right, fair enough. If it's that, we're nowhere close to that. Like,
No,
maybe I'm missing something.
no, we don't.
You're not missing anything.
You're not missing anything. We'll never get a dollar from the wind policy.
So you're letting them play it out just because, or?
Yeah, it's just because we want to see what they found, what they found. And then,
Okay.
you know, we want to have advantage of their discovery, basically.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know, while Joe was here, he's having technical difficulties with the Zoom. He was on via phone.
Okay.
I see a phone thing on there. It looks like a phone.
If it's not, that could be
hi.
Joe. It's 905 area
Yeah,
code.
it
That's,
is,
near
it is
me in
Joe. I
Toronto.
let him in, but I'm not sure if he's having issues with the mute. I just wanted to let you guys know he's here and he can hear us.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Great.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, sorry about that. It's I think my internet is not working this morning.
It's the
Okay,
full
and I
moon.
think we've lost, well, no, Mary Ann must still be there. I see a blank.
I'm
Marianne
here.
is 7:05.
Yeah, I just can't get my camera to work. I think I'd have to go back into my settings, and I'm afraid to do that because then I would, be afraid I'd screw up the call. So,
Yeah,
but I'm here. I am listening.
I thought maybe it was a bad hair day or something.
No. And it truly is.
Okay, so let's get into the update of the Hurricane Ian recovery. I'll just cover a few things that are done. The outlets in all three buildings and the pavilion have been almost replaced. I think building 1 has some outlets to be done yet. And that's, that's kind of a day-to-day thing. They let us know when we can get back on their agenda. Dana, have you heard from West Coast lately?
Not lately. The garage or ground level building 3, ground level building 2 should be complete. Ground level building 1, there's roughly 15 to 20 that still need replacing. And they also took care of the entrance island along with the pool house, so we could get your Christmas lights up and running. And I'm also waiting for, tied into that, a quote on the panel for the entrance island. But they have not responded to my inquiries. Last week, they said they were supposed to be sending someone out on Saturday to finish the job, but no one made it out here, so.
Right. Okay. All right, most of the street lights are working at the entrance and really up to building 1. Building 2 and 3 lights are not working currently. It's funny, I wrote this out yesterday, but I wrote the fire alarm system is working. Well, kind of. However, the first floor pull stations still have to be replaced. As most of you heard earlier, building 2 had 2 alarms, one at 1:30 last night and one at 2 o'clock or one at 7 o'clock this morning. So anyway, there's still some glitches and Dana has a tech coming to look at that today, and hopefully we'll get that figured out. The jockey pump in building 3 has been replaced. The elevators are working. The call switches are fussy. When you push them, they don't light up right away. I know the one I use, even on the ground floor, it doesn't light up anymore all of a sudden. It's a lot of that corrosion that's still causing issues, and we'll just have to stay after it. And again, just a reminder for people listening, please do not hold the doors open. It tends to screw up the doors, and they have to be reset and to get them working again. The landscape tear out is complete. So now we'll move into replacement mode. We'll be doing that one of these days. Dana, we were going to get some quotes on that.
The recommendation from Mainscape was to wait on install, as we discussed with him, for a few months to test the ground for salinity. They're also going to flood the beds with the sprinkler system to try and get that salt out of there. I haven't looked for proposals for installation yet because we didn't know a time frame on when you wanted to do it, because also we could take the option of waiting until rainy season comes back, because otherwise we'd have to increase the watering for new items.
Yeah, it will take 2 months for us to get quotes, decide on a vendor, and get them so we can get started on quotes. And then as far as rainy season versus dry season, he made a good point when he was here in that, you have a year's guarantee. So
yes, for him, for Mainscapes.
Yeah, for Mainscape, and we'd have to make sure any other vendor did too if we did it during the dry season. But anyway, that allows us to get started and get it done, and then rely on their warranty after that. Okay, irrigation.
Can I add to that about the landscaping?
Yeah.
A lot of the bushes and things that were torn out had already been aging out, but there was no way that they were coming back. That's why the landscaper and Randy and I and Dana walked the property to just make sure that what they were recommending was to be torn out should be torn out. And yes, it was definitely not coming back. And some of those areas, especially in front of building 3, and areas between building 2 and 3, they needed to come out. And in my opinion, and some of us, I don't think that we have to replace like for like. I think it looks okay. Some of the areas will probably just sod and have a more open look. But again, we're gonna revisit it in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of people have been asking about the palm trees. We're getting quotes to have some of those dead branches cut down. But we're waiting on some of that too, to see eventually some of those palm trees may have to come down. There's, we just have to wait to see. They're still in shock, and they may or may not come back. And it's just a wait and see.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to cover just a few things that are done. And I guess
Yeah, okay.
landscaping as a general term isn't done, but the tear out is complete. And I'll
Yes.
get to those, all those issues in just a second.
Okay.
And then, the irrigation system controls have been replaced. There's probably some issues there as they ripped out landscaping and that kind of thing with that, some repairs that have to be done. But for the most part, that's complete. The window washing and screen cleaning is complete. The pavilion, refrigerator, ice maker, and TV have been replaced, even though the TV doesn't broadcast anything because there's no Wi-Fi. And a golf cart is on site. So that's what's been done recently since our last meeting. We've kind of hit a little bit of a lull, just because getting people in here has been an issue. So now I'm going to move into what still needs to be done. And Joe, I hope you can broadcast because I've got quite a few for you. We're going to start with
Yeah, sure.
electrical at building 1 and the street lights.
Well, I think you probably mentioned on that, but anyways, I'll go through that again. I think building 3 and 2, the GFIs are done, and I would say about a third of building 1 are done. So there's still some outstanding outlets to be done. The outer pool house was done for the Christmas light and lights. Also, the entrance island, I think there was some over there that were done as well. The pool pavilion is completely working. The street lights are working on the front half of the property, but we need to order some replacement domes and parts. I think also waiting for for a quote to replace on the island a panel box that is rusted. So that's on the electrical and street lights. An update on the electrical at the pool area. This has probably been the most disappointing area in the pump house, where we have the pumps for the pool, the geothermals, the pumps for the waterfalls, and for the spa as well. It's been extremely slow. The only positive news is that the 5 geothermal pumps are expected anytime soon at the supplier, which is called Symbiont. And hopefully once they receive it, maybe this week or next, they will schedule a time to install them. So hopefully we should be having heat in the pool. Well, let's take a guess, maybe 3 to 4 weeks from now. Now, the problem that we've been having is really to replace or fix all the pumps, because all the pumps were flooded with the exception of the 2 circulating pumps for the pool. As most of you have noticed, they are running, but loud. We had a couple of people that came in initially, but they basically disappeared. And the company we have been working to try and replace the pumps is Symbiont, the same company that's doing the geothermal, but they really have been very slow in giving us a quote. It's been a month now. Another approach is to try to refurbish some of the pumps or all of them. At this point, we don't know until they're opened and people have a look at them. It's a company on the East Coast that has the capability to do all of these pumps. We sent them all kinds of pictures to see what they are and how they can take them out of there. And hopefully we should getting some quotes from them. That's probably in about a week or so. The fellow I was dealing with last week, he's off this week and can't get a hold of anybody that replaced them. So really the pump house is pretty much the slow, very disappointing area. And another area are all the panels, the electrical panels, some of the breakers. We think they're okay, but we're not sure until we get some qualified electricians to pretty much look at the whole system in there. I mean, some of them do look pretty in bad shape. You can see corrosion, and electricians have to look at it, probably even clean some of them, especially the parts that were flooded. So anyways, I hope this can be done soon, but it's been extremely slow and very disappointing. On the emergency lighting system,
Joe,
yes?
before you leave the pool, give the folks an idea of, this could be a very expensive area, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I do have some unofficial quotes. Some of it is what I've been able to do some searching of the type of pumps, the sizes and all this. We have 3 waterfall pumps. They're 20 horsepower motors, and also, that's usually called the dry end, the motor side, and the wet end is where you have the housing and the impeller. Basically, those pumps anywhere between 25 to 30,000 each. So we're looking at about $90,000 for the waterfall pumps. That's brand new. I'm not sure about the installation. I think installation shouldn't be too onerous in terms of cost, but the 2 pool pumps, which are smaller, they're 7.5 horsepower. Those we're looking at about 10,000 a piece. And then we have similar sizes of pumps for the spa. And then we have a variety of smaller pumps, 3 to 5 horsepower. So my estimate, we're talking here, approximately $150,000 just for the pumps. Now, for the electrical part, which we really don't know at this time. I mean, we have had some electricians initially to get us going, but looking at the panels, looking at all the breakers and everything else that's, to me, looks corroded and not in good shape, we could be looking at another $25,000 to $50,000. So then we had already $73,000 that was committed for the 5 geothermals. We could be looking at $250,000 thereabouts. Probably that I try to go on the side of the higher end, but these days things are so bloody expensive that $250,000 when we're done at the pool, I don't think we'll be too far off. So that's not a happy situation. But the worst thing is we just can't get people. We just can't get people for the pumps and the electrical, even worse. But anyways, I do hope the priority is really to get the pool running properly. Yes, the 2 pumps are running. They are making noises. I think if we can get a company that can refurbish those 2 pumps, the turnaround time could be a week or 2, because I'm a little bit afraid that those pumps will fail. And of course, to get the geothermal pumps so we can have the pools warm for a lot of the old folks like me and my buddies. And so that's the priority. I think the waterfall and the spa are also important, but less so at this point in time. So that's pretty much what I have for the pool. And sorry, it's just been very, very slow and expensive. Okay, so I'll move on. If you have questions after I'm done on all of these items, I'll be able to elaborate a little bit more. But on the emergency lighting system, that's also UPS system. Basically, those were flooded, and we have ordered the parts, the batteries, and the controllers, the inverters, and apparently all the components have arrived at CES, and now they're basically just waiting for some angle irons to support some of these components, and they expect to have things pretty much ready to have them installed the end of this month, but let's say after the holidays to be safe. But that's the best update I got. On the fire alarm systems, and now the fire alarm system, that's why we hear all the buzzing and whatever continuously. The latest update I have, the pull stations have been received. The mini modules, these are modules that go behind the pole cords, whatever. These are expected to arrive by the end of January, but even the longer delivery time is the annunciator panels, and these are expected to be the end of March. So regrettably, we will continue to hear those beeps for a few more months. On the elevators, Randy has mentioned already about the elevators, some of the things that have been done. They're all working fine. I mean, not 100%. I mean, there are a few glitches, but just to give you an idea, in the past 2 months since we had electricity back and we were able to start looking at the elevators, we've had 15 callouts. Now, 15 callouts pretty much represents a full year of callouts in the past couple of years. So there have been a lot of callouts, a lot of repairs, and repairs have been pretty expensive. I think we had a total of about, I don't think I've seen all the invoices, but I think it's somewhere between $12,000 to $15,000 US in terms of callouts and emergency repairs. Typically, we don't have a lot of repair works on a typical year. Somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 a year, but the last 2 months has been pretty high. I mean, we do have quarterly inspections, and those are done quarterly as well. So elevators has become an expense. Well, they're important, but they also have become very expensive as well. Just to give you an idea, when we call out a mechanic, it's $400 an hour. And sometimes we did call out on overtime because both elevators were down on some situations. We're looking at $800 an hour for a mechanic. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And I mean, they are important. We have to use some, if we have 2 elevators and one of them goes down on the weekend, well, maybe we should wait till Monday, as long as we have one in operation. And obviously, if somebody is trapped, we have to call for emergency. But I think we need to be cautious when we do call out. There's a lot of work to be done still on the elevators. I mean, they are safe. It's not a question that they're unsafe, but because the pits were flooded, we have ordered a lot of parts at the beginning, right after the flood, and some of these are the governor ropes and the govern tail shivs, which are at the bottom of the pit. These are sort of safety ropes that one finds sometimes on the overhead space above the elevator or below. And these, if an elevator goes up too fast or goes up too fast or down too fast, well, then these somehow they have a trigger mechanism where it stops the elevator. So there's a lot of components to be changed at the elevator pit and below the elevator. Some switches and some shivs, and some of the steel work has to be sandblasted, scraped and repainted as well. And I think this was, if I'm not mistaken, I think for the 6 elevator was about $86,000 to be for the work that will be done. It is expected that most of these parts will be delivered to Koning by the end of January. So hopefully the work will be done in the course of February or so. So that's the best estimate we have. But again, I have to say the pool has been very, very slow and disappointing, and we will persevere. That's all I have for now. So if there are any questions.
Yeah, Joe, Marilyn, I had a question. I noticed that the fountain on the pond isn't working. Do we know if that's electrical or is it the fountain itself?
Sorry, the pumps for the waterfalls, Marilyn?
No, the fountain down at the pond at street level, Main Street.
Oh, I see. At the street, the fountain at the pond. That I'm not sure. I would imagine there would be some power. No, I'm not 100% sure, Marilyn, but my guess is it would be electrical. It would be, yeah.
Joe, Leo and I were fooling around the other day, and there's a panel down just before the island starts as you're leaving Castella, and it's
right
on the north side there. You know, the panel that's rusting out, and there is a
right.
timer. There's a timer there as well, and
okay.
And my guess, and I'll repeat guess, is that timer controls that fountain.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, we messed with it a little bit, and we couldn't get the timer to power up.
Right.
So
okay.
There's an electrical issue there, and
right.
Who knows between the timer and the fountain itself whether there's an issue, but
right.
couldn't get that timer to fire up.
And then I also noticed that the lights are on the street lights are on all day. Is there a reason for that, or?
No idea, Marilyn. Not sure.
Not a good reason.
No, it must be an electrical gremlin.
No, and what's happening is they have them going down there, and then there's a GFI outlet down by the Castella sign, and the sprinklers come on during the night whenever they come on, and they shut the GFI outlet off. It does what it's supposed to do, and it shuts off, and so the lights are off. And then you got to reset the GFI outlet down there to have them on at night. So between Leo and I, if I'm leaving to go to dinner for the evening, at 4 o'clock, I'll kick it back on. So it's on for the night, and then the sprinkler kicks on and shuts them back off again. But there's more to be done there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if when they installed those lights, if they didn't put some kind of electric eye, a photostat on there so that it would shut on and off. They're just plugged in there. And then they're powered constantly, just like the street lights are powered. And the street lights are supposed to be on a timer, but they're on all day too, right now. And until we get these electricians back and get all that, it'll be on. It's on at the same time the street lights are on. Okay. Jim, did you want to talk to us about just fire systems at all? Is there anything new there?
Sorry, Randy, I was on mute. The only thing on the sprinkler side of the fire systems is that we have repaired everything that we know is wrong. I don't believe, from what I've heard this morning, the sprinklers engaged last night in building 2. So hopefully we've got at least the initial problems resolved on the sprinkler systems for fire. And I understand that Full Force, the new sprinkler company, will be doing the fire inspection in January. And hopefully we might find a few other weak points, can repair them. And, the hope is avoid any other miscellaneous alarms that come out. But that's all I have to share on the sprinkler side.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know of any sprinklers that went off with the alarms last night, so I think we're good to go. Water pressure system power up. That's Waterworks. Dana, do you have any more information on that?
It's been a few weeks since Boyd was able to come and visit us. Boyd is the gentleman from Waterworks who does Costella. He had a laundry list of issues that needed to be dealt with, but they're having some issues with what are called variable frequency drives that we have are obsolete. And he needs a couple of those at least for the pumps. And he found a few in Tampa, but these are all going to take time to be ordered and shipped. And in some cases, we may have to replace and program entire VFD systems. So basically from his last visit in building 1, pump 1 has an unresponsive keypad. Pump 2 has a disablement from a false GFI shutdown. Both pumps are running. So we are running, we just have some issues. In building 2, it's loud and it gets a slow startup. He feels that this one has some, it took on debris from the water main and is plugged up. So he's going to, when the opportunity presents itself, dismount that pump and they'll have to take it to the motor shop for evaluation and repair. Pump 2, he cycled it. This one seems to be working the best. It's one of the 2 better ones that are in good shape. It's holding at a 90 PSI pressure. Most of the other ones are anywhere between 75 and 80. And then in building 3, pump 1, that pump he says runs good. He disabled, like I said, on some of them, he had to disable the false GFI shutdown, but pump 1 runs well. And pump 2 has one of those keypads that I was speaking of that's going to need to be replaced as well. So he's replaced snubbers under the pressure sensors. The sensors were all reading correctly and their gauges are working. So right now he's waiting on the new VFD keypads to bring them in to install. And while he's here, he will remove pump 1 in building 2 to see if they can rebuild that so we don't have to order a new one. So a lot of that was probably a little bit of Latin there. He walked me through some of it and Leo through some of it in the pump rooms as well. So they're all running just at various levels of efficiency.
Right. So, while you're at it, just keep rolling there, Dana. Let's talk about first floor door locks and garage door repairs.
First floor door locks. I through a lot of phone calls and reaching out, I finally got a hold of All Locks, which is the company that did your original lock installs back at the beginning of Costella. The gentleman who owned it then sold it to one of the people that worked for him. So now that gentleman owns it and we were able to get him on site finally. He sent us a proposal. So we had 3 proposals. We went through all of them and then I sent in the accepted proposal for All Locks. He is trying to set up the schedule, but he's hoping he can get out here next week and hopefully, knock on wood, we can have the ground level locks, not storage units, but just the stairwells, the doors going from the atriums into the garages, the doors leading out of the garages, all of those safety doors, all the fixtures replaced, all the locks working, especially the rooms like FACP room, the fire pump room, all of those are in the proposal to be replaced. He did recommend, so on his proposal, the atrium doors are not included because there's an electric lock system in there and they don't want to try to replace that. They may be able to get that working once we get our access panel from a new IQ put in. So he said in that case, we can go back and revisit that, but it has, if you'll notice when you're going out the door, there's a cord for that. So he's working on getting us on the schedule, but he's optimistic that he and his guys, they'll come out in a group and they can get us done before the holiday.
Okay. What were the numbers on the bids that we had, Dana? They're 31?
One was, I know All Locks was, I believe it was about 19,000 rounding up,
Right?
and then
25 and 31, wasn't it?
Able were 25 rounding up, and I believe it was 22 rounding up. So he came in quite a bit lower, and he has the background and all of the master key information, the pinning information from when they did your locks initially. So it worked out well that as the company that did it the first time, he also came in with the lowest bid.
Garage door repairs, overhead door.
The garage door companies are still very, very backed up. They won't even commit to a service date. They'll simply tell you that you are on the schedule. I've talked to two, and that was almost 4 weeks ago, and I keep following up, and they keep just telling me you're on the list, you're on the list. I've gone through overhead door, and I've gone through a couple other companies as well and put us on all their lists, just to see if we can get whoever can get out here first. But it's to the point, even like overhead door, if you call them, it goes straight to a voicemail. You don't really get to talk to a person. You really have to work for it. But they're all overwhelmed.
Yeah. Crowther roof inspections.
Crowther roofing inspections, they sent back some of the inspection report earlier from their initial visit. They did do some repairs at that point. I'm still reaching out and waiting for them to get back to me so we can get the finalized reports from them.
Okay.
And then we did have, on a side note from Crowther, Leo did go up there and do some items where we were concerned there might be some leaking that we took care of ourselves, that he was able to just secure some things. There are some other items up there. There's access doors up there that he also can take care of. So we don't have to outsource that. So that's on his list, to-do list, if you will.
Okay. Hot wire Wi-Fi issues in the pavilion.
Hotwire is supposed to be coming out next week on Monday to take a look at Wi-Fi or wired, excuse me, access or wired internet to the door access panels to support the new systems that we're getting, as well as the, there's still issues with the phone line in the pool pavilion. And while they're there, I'm having them look at the cable that's in the wall behind the TV, so you can use your new TV and have, you know, programming. So they said they would come out on Monday. They didn't give me a window, but
they know on the new TV, I know before, I have no idea what kind of system we had with Hotwire, but the quality of the reception, it was basically the lowest level of reception, and the quality wasn't very good at all. So I don't know what they're planning to do, but I would suggest we get a receiver so that we can actually have basically high definition instead of some viewing that basically doesn't even, it's not worth it.
okay.
I do think we need a receiver.
Okay, I can
No.
definitely call and look into that. That's not a problem.
The only thing I don't know is what will it cost us to have that receiver? You know, I hope they won't charge us $100 a month or something. But anyways, otherwise I know what we had before was totally useless,
Okay.
and it was difficult to manage.
Yeah, that's because we were basically just streaming.
Yeah, well, streaming can work if you have a good good Wi-Fi, but I don't know what kind of bandwidth they gave us before, but because it was, I mean, it's not even, it wasn't even enjoyable to watch any over there.
Yeah, you can stream, but you still have to have access to the major networks if you want to get.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
So
So that's why I think we need a receiver like we have in our units.
Yeah, yep. Okay, grills, fire pit, LP gas tank, Dana.
LP gas tank, AmeriGas. I've reached out to them again because there's no leaking or no emergent issues. They have not been very responsive to coming and looking at the tank, so I'll continue on that. The fire pit, Leo's taken a look at it. He feels it needs an electrician in order to get it going. So it's kind of been, as obviously we've had issues getting electricians here to do the things like the street lights and all that. We kind of put the fire pit at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I
As
hear you.
for-
I will talk to Leo, Dana. That switch is battery powered. I
Okay.
don't think there's any
Hmm?
electric power there.
Okay,
So,
They just.
and
they're
then the
having trouble
grills,
setting them up.
so we know Winans was working on the grills before he left. He ordered some parts. Those parts were lost in the flood. Leo found a couple of them and they look to be usable, but he has questions. He's reached out to the grill company and spoken with the gentleman, and he's going to get a hold of what we need, and hopefully he can get the grills working next week. It's on the to-do list. The guy did suggest that there are some certain things he look at just for water to make sure that they weren't damaged and might need to be replaced, but he's confident he can get that done in the next week or two.
okay. Lightning inspection on roofs.
I have not done anything with that, unfortunately. I'm gonna have to follow up on that one.
Okay.
Randy, I think we were waiting for the wind report from that mechanical engineer to kind of give us his comments and guidance. And then we can contact somebody to check out our LP systems.
Okay, and that engineer was with the insurance company?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was an Englishman who was a mechanical engineer who made those comments. So rather than just go up and start looking, let's wait to see what his notes are. And then at that point, see if we go find a company to tighten up the LP system.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep it on the list. Repair the parking wheel stops, kind of a minor one, but
The parking wheel stops were ordered from, I forget the name of the catalog. Leo has it. We just have to order new ones so he can put them in. I forget, he's got the catalogs in his office. We located the ones that you guys have. We just have to order them and put them in.
okay. The atrium fountains, I know Leo's been working on that.
Yep, the atrium fountain, so 2 was drained and he cleaned it out to the best of his ability. Obviously, we chose at this time not to have Green and Clean come out and do any sort of acid washes or anything just yet. We did get a proposal from them on the pump. We looked up the pump to be purchased retail, and we can purchase the pump for a much cheaper price than Green and Clean is proposing. And Leo is able to install the pump. We just may need an electrician out to do the major electrical work. But he can do the pump himself, so we can save a good $200 or $300 just by getting the pump and having him install it.
Yeah. No, so for clarity, we're talking about building 2 fountain.
Building
and-
2 fountain, yes.
Yeah, and 1 and 3 are working, correct?
1 and 3 are working, and Green and Clean is cleaning are putting in the chemicals and making sure that they're all maintaining, just like the pool.
All right, you're building 2 exhaust fan and in the 2 stack for the range hood.
The exhaust fan in building 2, we had the company that originally did the work and the installation on that out last week. The tech said that the problem in there was the fan. The fan was wobbling and it got on an angle and it jammed. So the fan stopped spinning. So the motor to everything he looked at, the motor should be fine. He's taking a look at the bushings and the fan for any manufacturer issues, but he should be able to reset the fan in there and that stack should be okay. So it's like at an angle
Okay, so
and
he's,
jammed up.
the current status is we're waiting for him to come back and finish.
He's just checking up on the manufacturer to see if there's any defects on the fan, and then he'll come back and put it back in, assuming that there's any issues. We also have warranty with them, which I discussed on the phone with them as well. So if there is an issue with that fan, we should be able to, it will be within a couple of days, but we should be able to get, if need be, a warranty replacement because it's 2 years on parts.
Right. If they don't blame the hurricane, right? Okay. Uh, another minor one, the stop sign for building 1.
I got the proposal for the stop sign for building 1 and the vendor sign that's leaning over by building 3 and submitted it. They have to, if we go ahead and do it, they'll take the post out, take it to their workshop, clean it up, paint it, put the new stop sign back on it, and then return it.
Okay.
But I think there was question of whether that stop sign was something that we absolutely had to have. It was about $500 for the whole thing.
Okay, the next one, before I get into it, I need to make a comment that Dana's been a real trooper since she's gotten here. She's been working out of the pavilion. She's now in her office working off the top of a box. And we have her furniture purchased now. We have a chair, we have a table for in there so we can sit and talk through things and that kind of thing. But we have to do some painting and repair and floor repair in there. So before we can actually move her in, but what's the status of that, Dana?
Leo, so I don't know how many people have been in there, but they actually had to tear the wall out. It was separated. So one half is one color and one half is the other color. Leo, we're just gonna go ahead and get, a big bucket of paint. We'll go in there, we'll just paint it real quick. So that's taken care of. And then it's just a matter of the flooring. They had to rip out the carpet and rugs that were in there because they were ruined. So the entire floor is covered in a glue, which Leo's trying to determine how to best remove that so that we can go with another means of flooring, even if it's just getting down to the concrete slab and painting it. He's tried a couple of things to see how efficiently we can get that stuff off the floor, but the floor is pretty rough. You can see there's been layers of things done since that office was used as an office.
Now, you mentioned something about an epoxy guy that you knew would come in and clean that off and put down a layer of epoxy.
I did send an email to him on Monday to see what the cost would look like for them to come out, remove that, and then put down an epoxy floor. I know with Perry Aspartic, it's about $6.50 a square foot. The epoxy should be less. So I'm waiting to see what he comes back with because they would just come in and clear the floor. If there are any cracks or any issues, they're capable of filling those as part of the quote and then putting down the epoxy. So I'm waiting to see what he comes back with.
Yeah, that sounds like a fairly reasonable alternative to having Leo try to get that glue up and then paint on the floor. You can have a lot of money in that also. I think there's about 100 square foot in your office, just roughly.
Yep.
It's probably a $500 bill. I know that's still a lot of money, but we could spend a lot of money with Leo doing it too. Okay, so more to follow on that when he gets back to you.
Yeah.
Mary Ann, you're up next with replacement furniture for the atriums,
Okay,
pool furniture, landscape issue.
perfect. We pretty much already went through the landscape. The tear outs have been done. We're waiting on palm trees that need to be trimmed, getting bids on all of that, but we still need time. And still revisit what the areas that had bushes should be replaced with bushes or just leave it be. Had that more open look, which seems to be the end thing right now, not bushes behind other bushes. So that's pretty much the landscaping. The pool furniture, I wanted to touch base on that, is still being repaired. We dodged a real bullet on that one because the initial plan was to take that pool furniture and store it in the garages. So those would have floated away and been ruined, but fortunately they were being repaired in a safe storage room. But it's been a slow process too, with Clive Daniel and what's the name of the furniture? Brown Jordan. The slings that they sent that the company Leisure Furniture received, the slings were too long, so they have to cut them. And so it's taken a little bit longer. So, but that's okay. Hopefully we'll get the furniture this month. We're hopeful. He contacted us about a week ago and said it would probably be 3 weeks. So we're hopeful, but can't promise that it'll be here in time for Christmas, but maybe Santa will be good to us and bring the furniture back. The atrium furniture, we have a design committee, one from each building. Joy Horniman and Kathy Stuckenschneider and Phyllis Markin and I went furniture shopping, so to speak. And furniture has been ordered and will probably take from anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. It's going to be, we're just going to do 4 chairs and 2 tables, 2 little round tables for each building. And we just feel like we had too much furniture before that wasn't being used. So this is actually going to, keep that open look, because our atriums look pretty nice now that they're empty. And we've moved the flower pots around a little bit. So furniture has been ordered, but again, it's just like everything else going to take some time, 6 to 12 weeks.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Nope.
Marianne, I'm not sure. On the mainscape, I guess, with the landscaping and all that, do you know if any salinity tests were done to the soil for the various area?
I think there was a while back, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are going to be, like Dana mentioned, they're going to be flooding a lot of those beds and hopefully getting rid of, some of that bad soil, and they'll retest it here just before any planting is done. But things, we won't do any planting unless we know that things can be planted and not die on us. But again, like Randy pointed out, we do have a year guarantee. I'd rather have a year guarantee from April, knowing that the soil is good in April, than planting something now.
Just to be able to understand when the soil is good, so we can actually start using some of these controllers and the flow meters to try and start saving on some of the water for irrigation. But that's right. So it's just a question, when has it reached a good level so that we can stop overwatering and move over to less watering, I guess.
Okay. We'll talk to him about that.
Right.
Okay, so the last issue that I have on the things to be done from Hurricane Ian recovery is painting of the garages. And that's not necessarily a Hurricane Ian issue. It's more of, it's an issue that's been pushed off for years. The garages have not been painted since the place was built in 2006. They've been on the reserve schedule to be painted different times and pushed off both times. And in one case, the money really intended to be for the garage painting was spent on other things. And so, it's an issue that we just pushed off. And we're scheduled for, in our reserves, correct me now, Marilyn, if I'm wrong, we're scheduled in our reserves, I believe, in 2026.
Correct.
For the next painting. It is possible that, a person could push it to then. I've said this before, I'm not a believer in waiting for things to fail to replace them. I'm a preventative maintenance person, and I think that it's now 16 years old, that paint, and it's time. And one of the things that's pushing that is that currently the storage rooms are as empty as they're going to get. And even though it's still going to be somewhat of a hassle to paint those storage rooms, I don't think there will be a better opportunity to paint those storage rooms than now. So where I'm going is the garages have to be painted at some point. And if we paint every 16 years, paint garages every 16 years, actually that's pretty darn good. And that would work in with our reserve schedule for a painting in 2040. I guess that's that's about 16 years, 17 years. But anyway, so, we've debated this issue of whether to do it now, do it later. We are spending a lot of money right now. It's something that potentially we could wait on. But the longer you wait, the more those storage rooms fill up and the bigger hassle it becomes, and the costs go up. So we have it in the reserve schedule. It is budgeted. Some people may say that we're pulling the reserve schedule ahead. The reality is it's been pushed behind for years, and we're just pulling it to where we're doing what should have been done previously. So I want to have some debate on that, but I want to get to a motion finally about whether to proceed with the painting of the garages or not. Either put the issue on the table, and either we're going to do it now or we're going to do it later. We've had, some email discussions back and forth. I don't know if any of you want to weigh in on that or go right to a motion.
Randy, maybe you can just mention the cost again separately for the garage and the locker rooms. If I remember right, there was 30-something thousand for the locker rooms and the garage around 45 or something. I don't recall precisely, but those are the approximate numbers, if I'm not mistaken.
Dana, do you have that in front of you?
Yep, I'm pulling it. I'm going through it right now. So, because I'm working through the options here. Just one second. Bear with me, please.
I think we should add that, we would schedule the lockers for now when they're empty, and then in the summer do the painting in the garage.
Good point. Yeah.
Right.
So the base bid for the garage itself was 60 from the proposal from Elias was about 65,000. And then optional items, including the 72 storage units, was another 33.
Okay.
So roughly $100,000.
Yes, and they also do add, we can go in, they put in options for the different ways we can get the doors painted and other detail items like that. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So that does not include the individual storage unit doors?
So the optional item, it's the 33 for the storage unit includes one coat of surface primer prep paint for the storage area walls and ceiling. But if you want to paint the doors, it's an additional with the same painting, it's an additional $60 per side.
So I think it would be good to paint the doors when we do the lockers because it's more secure. There's no contents. Have to leave them open when there's contents, right?
Right.
So
well, and the doors, Marilyn, help me with this. That would be an owner responsibility?
no, that would be us.
Okay, all right.
It's an additional $43.20 to do 72 doors.
Well, I don't know how you paint everything else and not paint the doors.
No, yes.
They would empty.
Yeah. So that will put us what, $120 per door times 72. What's that's going to put us just over $100,000, right?
About 100.
An extra $43.20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the board would like to proceed with that, I would like to get moving forward or put it to bed one way or another, but if the board would like to proceed with that, I'd like to have a motion that to proceed with the painting, but subject to confirmation that, we have a competitive price. I don't think we don't have enough information now to confirm whether or not it's a competitive price. I think we feel like it probably is based on painting prices we've received previously, but I think we need to confirm them. Marilyn, do you have anything to say?
No, I think we should. And Dana, did you get through to Marzuko's, for example?
Well, I've sent at least 4 other inquiries out, but haven't had any responses yet. Marzuko's, Florida Paint, and there were a couple others that I'll have to pull up because I use the Alliance vendor system to find a couple other paint companies.
Okay.
Okay, I do have a question. So the painting, does that include the ceiling and the walls and the pipes? And the garages?
No. I don't think it did. I think it didn't include the pipes. That part I'm sure.
Okay, and we've got to think about the trash rooms too. Right? I mean,
There are too many other things,
Yeah.
but I'm not on the board.
So I have it right in front of me. The following work to be performed on the parking garages would be they would pressure clean. They would apply a coat of surface conditioner primer, prep and apply a coat of paint to include the interior block walls of parking garage and the ceilings of the parking garage.
okay,
You get the paint miscellaneous metal, prep, prime, and apply 1 coat to include previously painted pipes, and paint doors, spot prime and apply 1 coat to include service utility doors and cases.
Okay, so it sounds like
Oh, yeah.
that they don't say anything about the trash rooms or the fire rooms or anything there, do they?
Not specifically optional items. The only thing under optional is storage units. With, like we discussed, I don't see anything specifically about the inside the trash room. Or any of the janitorial or anything like that.
yeah.
Well, we can look at, what that additional cost is, I guess, but it does sound like it's the ceilings, the pipes, everything is included in that. Correct?
Yep, those are all in the base bid, pressure cleaning, painting the walls and ceilings of the parking garage, prep, prime, and apply a coat to previously painted pipes and paint doors. They can spot prime and apply 1 coat to service utility doors and the cases. So I can definitely ask Mike. He's been very responsive about the specifics of, say, like the trash room or the janitorial offices, and see what he has to say. I know the janitorial office will probably be an easy one, but Leo's office will be a little more work for us because he has, his workbench in there, shelving, the peg hole where he keeps all the tools, that sort of thing. A lot of that wall is blocked off.
Yeah, I'd almost think we're better off to do something like that ourselves as we have time. Have Leo paint his own storage area as he has for a fill-in job during the summer.
Good idea.
Dana, a gap I hear is I haven't heard that in the storage rooms, the ceiling or the piping would be painted.
That's not specifically listed. It did just say walls.
That's correct.
So we
Again,
need
he's been very responsive. Every question I've asked him, they've gotten back to me usually within the day. So I can definitely make note of these and follow up. I know that they did say for Elias, the proposal we do have, that they would be willing to split as Marilyn said, split the painting. And if it's more convenient, do the storage units now while they're still empty. And if you guys would like to hold off until the off season to do the garages to cause less headache for parking and for the owners and everything like that. So they're willing to split it.
Well,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and I have a comment, if we're going to decide to do this, get on their schedule, because, everybody's getting busier and busier. And so we need to get on schedule. But I do have a question about our storage locker doors themselves. And, because the flood and the water and everything, are those doors at some point,
Want to hear?
I mean, did the water affect them to the point where, are they going to have to be replaced at some point? I mean, would painting them now just be like, something that would be a waste? If their doors are going to have to be.
Maybe what we can do to do some forensics in there is to take one of the doors and see what's inside. I suspect they should be okay, but maybe the best way to do it is take one door, sacrifice it, and see what the inside looks like.
Okay, it was your idea, so we'll sacrifice yours.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Well,
But I think it should be okay. But you never know. I think it's one of those things.
Well, Leo this week has been going around trying to work on some of the door locks for some of those storage units. Some of them are frozen open, so the storage door won't stay closed. And then some of them, obviously, we have issues with getting into them. I know he did some work yesterday to the janitorial room in building 1, which would be where Orby keeps her stuff. They have 2 doors there. We've been having issues with one of the doors jamming and she gets stuck in there. So he went in to start trying to make that repair. Those doors have a pole lock where when you lock it, it goes into a little hole in the ground. That pole, which was some sort of metal, obviously, I know Leo said when he went in to do the repair, it basically disintegrated. Like when he pulled it out, it broke in half. It was all rusted, flaking off. He pulled it out and it just kind of broke right in his hand. So I don't know if that gives you a better idea. The inside of those doors might not be in the best shape. I can't say for sure, but I can tell you that is what he ran into while he was trying to fix her doors so she wasn't getting stuck inside.
Okay. Well, that kind of delays things, or I don't know how we could form some kind of motion. I had hoped that we would make some progress today in our board meeting and we could have a motion and a vote on there, but well, there's a lot of open issues. I mean, we need competitive quotes and we want to look at doors. I guess we could commit to doors later. We have time to commit to doors. Dana, is that right?
I mean, I don't know. He said that they could paint the storage units right away if that's what you guys wanted. I mean, if they're gonna, and I can only speak to the proposal we have, I would imagine with the flexibility he's showing so far, maybe they would paint the doors when they did the garages if you wanted to do some more research. But again, I would have to ask him to see.
Then you would have to open up the storage rooms.
Yeah, people will have filled their rooms by then.
Have to leave the doors open for 24 hours minimum, and people's things are not secure. So that's the one issue in my mind with not doing the doors when you do the lockers.
Do you think that Leo could maybe inspect a couple of doors just to, take a random look at them just to say, hey, they're perfectly fine. They can be repainted, not worried about any, of the flooding, damaging those doors?
He could look. I don't know if he's qualified to be able to tell you what the inside of the doors are like, but I do know, like I said, when he did Orby's door, he and I had a conversation and he had concerns about inside of the door
Yeah,
just because of the condition of what the parts he was removing. He had just completely took everything out of her door so that it would stop jamming up. And everything that came out was rusted and in pretty rough shape.
Well, so
That
you
could be
engineers
aged.
you engineers on the call, so could we take a door off and just remove the sweep and be able to inspect it from the bottom? Or do you want to section it somehow and peel back the metal
Well,
sheeting?
I think whatever we do, I mean, we can section it or have a look inside and I think would give us a decent idea. Will they last another 30 years or they're going to fail in the next year? I suspect they probably will show some minor discoloration of rust, but I'd be very surprised that those doors would have to be replaced. But yeah, I think let's take one out, section it if we have to. Let's have a look at it, and I think just a visual observation. We can scrape it and see how deep that rust goes, and
Now let's
then
just
we
take
can make.
this, before we section it,
Yeah.
sacrifice the door, if we just take that sweep off the
Yeah,
bottom.
we could do that.
Yeah, and look at that and see what kind of shape that's in.
yeah.
The other thing as well that Dana, did you say was $60 per side? So we're looking at about $120 a door.
It said $60 per side. So yes, $120 per
Okay.
door.
Oh, I thought it was.
The other issue, the other thing we need to probably consider as well, we could be pissing away $7,000 or $8,000 by just repainting them. If we believe that they're in decent shape to repaint them, and if 10 years from down the road they fail, well, then we may have to replace the door. But basically, we could be sacrificing $8,000 of just painting the doors now. I mean, it's not a question they're going to fail in a couple of years. I doubt it. They're not going to rust. So I would say the door should not impede us from pursuing what we wanted to do here. First, let's look inside. And I would suggest we probably take a risk and paint them. That's my.
You're
That's my
talking
feeling.
about $8,000 divided by 72 is $111 per door. And of course,
Correct.
we present their residents, I think instead of having the doors all different, yellow colored and the paint, the building color, and, having it like that for 8 or 10 years. I think most residents would say, please paint the doors.
The paint is peeling on many of the doors anyway.
Yeah.
Well, so that tells you right there, it's time to get it done.
Yeah.
But let's open up one of those doors and have a look and take some pictures, and then we'll make our best judgment based on what we see.
Okay, so can we put that in the form of a motion where we have a motion subject to inspection of the doors to our satisfaction and subject to competitive quotes confirming the lowest, best value.
I could have another bullet.
Well, I think we can have a look at the door this week or next week.
Yeah.
I know we're in a board meeting, so I'm trying
Yeah.
to, get
Randy's trying to make a motion.
yeah, right.
I would support that motion.
Okay.
I second.
How do we word that to be accurate? So the motion is to proceed with painting of the garages and storage areas and doors, subject to an inspection of the doors, and that they meet our
Criteria. Yeah.
whatever, or that they're satisfactory for painting. And then we need to get some competitive quotes to affirm that our price is good.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of getting competitive price. I think that probably whatever came is probably decent, but I think we should definitely get another quote at least.
Yeah, agreed.
Great.
I think it's passed.
It's passed. I think we had a yes and a yes and a yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, you
And
want to
a
do it
no.
formally? So, and a no. Jim's a
And
no.
a
So do I'll formalize it. So do we have a motion? Can you repeat that motion back, Dana? I see you're writing like crazy.
A motion to proceed with the painting of garage, storage units and doors, subject to door inspection for quality and reception of competitive quotes.
Good. Okay, second for that.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, me, no.
Fair enough. All right, so the motion passes and we have some work to do on the motion. That is get competitive quotes and inspect the doors. Okay,
Already working on the quotes and I'll get with Leo. And I guess we just have to pick a door then.
okay. Our next bullet on the agenda is proposal to move funds to reserves. Marilyn, that's yours.
Yeah, so this is in relation to claims. So we have our claim, our hurricane damage is approaching $900,000 now. We have filed the first of our claims with the flood insurance, which is, by my count, if we get replacement value back, should be around 296,000. We'll be filing supplemental claims because we have still work ongoing that filed with flood insurance. So the supplemental claim filed. I'm estimating that we could run through about 450 to 500,000 of the special assessment this year. But some of those items are reserve items that we're remediating. And in order to keep track of them properly for the reserve study, the next reserve study, they really need to be accounted for in reserves. So by subtraction, I'm saying, okay, if we're going to leave 500 in the operating account, then let's move 220 over to the reserve account to cover those reserve items that are being repaired. So that's my one motion on that. That we move 220 from the special assess over to reserves.
Right. So, and other items that are repairs because of the hurricane damage, how will they be recorded in the future?
That they will pass on to the balance sheet as deferred special assessment. So whenever there's a bill, it'll be taken out of that pool of money.
Okay. So we'll reckon.
And we might even have money transferring over into 2024. I mean, it's possible. With landscaping, for instance.
Right. Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor, I think.
Yeah. To move the $220,000 to the reserve fund.
I'll second that, Dana.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
I just want to add something with the special assessment is that 6 homeowners have not paid the special assessment. So this was declared when we sent out the agenda for the first meeting that we had concerning hurricane recovery. That was the official date of the notice of the special assessment. So we're well over a month since that was declared. So we need to start sending late notices that we haven't received from those 6. I think there's 6 that haven't paid, and there's 1 that's paid half. So we need to get that money, and anybody who's listening who hasn't paid yet, we will start to add interest costs. And then, in another 30 days, if we still don't get payment, then we'll start to take collections action. So it's important to pay those assessments on time.
Okay. Yeah, and we don't need any kind of motion or anything else. That's automatic. That's in our bylaws. That's what we'll do, right? So, so Dana, you kind of have the ball to keep that moving. But we're gonna go ahead and issue the letters, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Letters. Okay,
Mhm.
very good. Okay, the 2023 budget. Yeah, it was published and sent to everyone, and hopefully everyone got that. Everyone's had a couple weeks to review that. I think I'd like to just open that up for discussion. If there's any, questions, comments, clarifications needed by anyone, and then we'll move forward with that.
Well, I'll
Okay.
just do highlighting remarks is that it increased by 9%. Now, when I say 9%, that's versus last year. It really only, in the operating, we didn't really increase. We had a decrease versus last year because we had a lot of special projects that were done through operating expenses, which is kind of abnormal. So if I compare it to the previous year, 2021, our operating only is increasing by 1%. So where we have the big increases in the reserves portion of the budget, and we're utilizing the figure that was published in the 2022 update from Forge Engineering, which is what the statute requires us to use. And it becomes even more important as we consider what we've been through, that, we have such a high hurricane deductible, and that the reserve can actually function as kind of a self-insuring vehicle. Also, we in May, I believe, the Florida government passed Senate Bill 4, and Senate Bill 4 is really going to be a big wake up for a lot of associations that aren't funding reserves correctly, because they're going to require a structural integrity study. And that means looking at all the things that we don't reserve for, in addition, like foundations, our gangways, for instance. We will have to undergo this study before the end of 2023. And so I'm expecting that will actually could increase reserve costs. But the other flip side of it is when they do this study, and if they find any defect, we have to remedy it on the spot. We have to remedy it, and we don't have the money currently to be able to do that. So by having a big amount going into reserves, we'll kind of protect ourselves. We're kind of in a grace period right now before the bill actually enacts itself. So
To clarify that, Marilyn, we used to partially fund reserves.
we were partially funding since day
Yeah, we
one.
were partial funding, and if a big event happens, as we just experienced, then you have to have a special assessment. And so we've been getting by on the cheap for quite a few years, and now we're looking at fully funding, and we'll be required to fully fund in 2024, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing is you won't be able to take money from reserves to do anything else with it, not even with the vote. So the state, after Surfside happened, after the collapse of Champlain Towers, the state has just taken control, and they said, associations, you're going to have to maintain your buildings. Okay, case closed. No more kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that window. So
Okay, so really there's two issues here. We need to approve the budget, and we also need to approve have a motion for a new reserve study in 2023, so we're prepared for 2024, because our current reserve study does not include structural.
that does not include structural at all.
Right.
So we should try to schedule that study, like even if it's going to be 6 months from now, because all these associations are scrambling to
Sure.
meet that 2023 deadline
No, that's right.
to line something up
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And then As far as our budget, what's driving our budget are really two things, and it's insurance. And you heard Jeff talk about insurance and where that's going. It's only going to get worse. And the other thing is, we're fully funding for reserves where we didn't fully fund previously. Other than that, we'd be flat and maybe even down a little bit. I'm not sure. I haven't done that math, but those are the two things that drive the whole budget up.
Yeah.
And there's not much we can do about either of those things. And I guess we could partial fund for another year, but I think you're just fooling yourself.
Well,
You're gonna,
and then when you do your structural study, if they find anything that you have to remedy, you won't have the money. And you'll have to special assess to get the money. So
Right.
it doesn't make sense.
Marilyn, I have a question. With the new legislation that's coming, would there be some overlap right now on the reserves that we're currently doing, whether it's the roof or something else, I'm not totally familiar, that would overlap with the new legislation? So are we doing some funding, some reserve funding now that would probably go into the building integrity later on with the new legislation?
Yeah, we'll want to take our current reserve study and just add the other components in. So it'll just be a single study. Did I answer your question, Joe?
I think so. Generally, that's. I think you did. Yes. Thanks.
We're not going to do two separate. Just do one. And then when the buildings are 25 years of age, we have to do a milestone study, which is a totally different one. And then if they find any defects, they can do a phase 2 study. So this is really heavy duty legislation that's been passed to make sure that associations do their due diligence for the buildings.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So Marilyn, I have 2 or 3 questions.
Mhm.
One question is just to clarify, the budget does not include the incremental on insurance that may pop up in April. So
No,
would
it
that
does.
be handled as a special assessment if more is needed? Or would it be an increase in the quarterly assessments as we go into 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarters?
What do you mean incremental?
You've put a budget number in for insurance. I
Yes.
heard today that may not be enough. And if we needed more, how would we fund that? Special assessment or quarterly?
Okay, so here's what I would recommend that be done. First of all, you have to see if any money was carried over from the prior year in retained earnings. That sometimes gives you a fudge factor ability. That we didn't spend all the operating year, gets carried over, sits in retained earnings, and could go against that. The other option would be instead of a special assessment, you would just have a budget amendment.
So 2nd, 3rd, and 4th quarter assessments would go up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. The second question I have is
not something optional, because it's not optional. If it were an optional thing, then you go to that's because you have to get a vote. But insurance is not optional, so then you do a budget amendment.
And the board could decide that whatever the makeup of the board is at that time.
They decide at a board meeting. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Then
for the next
earlier,
board.
I'm sorry,
For the next board.
Yeah.
however it's constituted. And the second question is, earlier in the call, there was the motion to paint the garages and the storage lockers next year. Where is that money budgeted?
In the reserve study. And so we'll be collecting like $525,000 next year. So it will come out of that.
So I just want to be clear that the painting of the garages and the storage rooms are not part of the assessment money that we've just collected, but it'll be coming out of the reserve budget that we will be funding next year with the 525.
In the spreadsheet, I have an amount in there for the lockers, but I agree with you. I agree with you that maybe that shouldn't be in there. Maybe we should take that number out.
I'm just trying to create transparency. So thank you for mentioning it, because that's what I did notice.
Okay,
Okay, so that comes out of reserves next year. Then my third question is that it sounds like the reason why the quarterlies have gone up, as Randy shared, which is because of insurance and because of the reservable items, which I completely agree with. That the quarterlies didn't go up because we're not doing projects next year like we did this year, early in the year. I have a concern around this decking work we were going to look at for buildings 1, 2, and 3, because as we've shown, we think on the back wall of building 1, there might be some structural problems. Where would that money come from if we have to do it next year?
that's a line item in the reserve study also.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it. So we're spending those reserves too.
Yeah,
Another good reason to really increase the reserve budget next year, because we don't have anything in there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
so can we have a motion to approve the budget?
Yes,
Yes,
Second?
yes. me.
Second.
Can I
Okay,
just ask one more question? Is there any room for residents to ask, owners to ask questions before
Sure.
this is voted on?
absolutely. It's open right now.
Okay,
Still on discussion. We're ready to, we have a motion and a second on the floor, but it's too important if there's any questions.
Everyone, I have everyone unmuted. There's only one person muted and they're self-muted.
Okay.
So anybody who has questions, go ahead.
I had a whole bunch of questions. They all got answered by Marilyn, I think, and it's quite clear to me. And so I don't have any questions anymore.
Very good.
thank you, David.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Okay, we also need a motion for the new reserve study required by the Surfside law. Do I hear a motion for?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to schedule it. I think we should try to for maybe like a mid-year kind of scheduling if possible, after we kind of have remedied all the problems we have with the buildings, right?
Right,
Yes.
so, yeah, and funding for that? Marilyn?
I've been told that it's it's going to be about $6,000 for that type of study, so I put that in the budget.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay. So that brings me to the end of our list. Again, we open it up for anyone to ask questions, comments before we adjourn. All right, then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Just one last question. Dana, are they going to be able to get the coupon books out quickly?
It's gonna be, it'll be close because you guys are in the first week. Once when we finish with this meeting, I will put out the email that you approved your budget. And from there, that activates Colin in the accounting department he makes the order within 48 hours of the budget being approved, typically. So we'll be right on the cusp of whether or not we get them in time for Q1.
I did modify the per unit. I've modified the budget slightly for the per unit number to go to 5370.
Okay. You can
Um,
send that over to me and I'll.
I'll Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Not a problem, but yes, he usually has them ordered. Like he said, we actually just had a meeting yesterday that they try to order them within 48 hours of budget approval. So we're right on the cusp. They recommend, they'll guarantee any budget meeting held before December 1st. And then after that, it really just depends on how long it takes the people who print everything to get it back out to you guys. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, folks?
No,
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
moved. Yes.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
I,
I
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. Good call. Thank you.
Bye, Dana.
Bye, Dana.
Bye.